G'day guys, this is Jackson Milan, the Wealth Mentor, and we are here for another episode of the Financial Freedom Secrets podcast. I'm very excited to have a new friend here with us today, Bernard Kassab from Ucidity. I hope I said that correctly.
You did. You got it all.
Beautiful.
Mate, it's a pleasure to be here.
It must be my wog roots of the pronunciation of these names, mate. But it's a pleasure to have you here. I'm really excited to have a chat today because Bernard and his team are experts in integrative and end-to-end holistic marketing solutions for seven-figure professional services business, which is a little bit of a mouthful, and we're going to talk a little bit about what that actually means. What I'd love to unpack today is talking about where do businesses go wrong when it comes to implementing marketing, choosing an agency, implementing a marketing strategy, and then how can we better learn from the mistakes that many others have made. I've personally made myself to be able to have more results when it comes to our marketing. That's what we're in it for. So, Bernard, thanks for joining us, mate. How you doing?
Likewise, man. Great. It's been a great day, so I can't complain. You know, it's always good when you clean up your email. I think is the big thing for everyone, right? That's the winner. You know, you've had a good day when the email's nice and clean. You've only got like a couple of the main emails that have just come in that you've got to deal with. That was a key for today. I was like, yes, victory. I have conquered the email.
The conquest of the email inbox. Yeah. I completely understand it, which is great, which is awesome. So, Bernard, for those who don't know you or don't know the business Ucidity, tell us your story, mate.
Sure. How far back do you want me to go? So when I was a kid,
let's go right back to the beginning.
Funnily enough, I've always kind of had an interest in this. When I was a kid, I used to spend a lot of time drawing and creating, and that kind of led me into design and a creative pathway. And I was in the branding, strategic branding space, graphic design, and communications for around 11, 12 years. And then along that path, I met my now business partner, John. And 3 years ago now, almost on the dot, we launched Ucidity. And Ucidity, the great benefit of launching Ucidity was that he brought a very technical edge to my business with web development, CRM implementation, automated marketing, and that tied into the strategic and design side of what I was doing, which has allowed us to create this business that essentially can tap into all the channels that a business needs and be agile enough to move from one technology or one channel to another and have the ability to assess what's the most proficient and effective for that business. So that's where it all really becomes a lot of fun for us, where we're taking a lot of different angles towards the market and how people traditionally do things and finding new ways or different ways of doing it.
I love that, mate. And look, I think this is the interesting thing I've observed myself, that when you're a smaller business, you need to kind of be really clear on like specific tactics. You might be focusing on, say, Facebook ads or organic, or you find one thing that works really well. For many businesses, it's referrals, right? It's the organic growth. That is their one thing. But when you get to becoming a seven-figure business, the world of marketing changes. Funnily enough, just before this podcast, I had a meeting with my co-founder, Sam, and our general manager, Nadia. And we were talking about how do we evolve our own marketing strategy, just realizing that so many facets to a successful marketing strategy when you're seven figures or above. So, Bernard, in your experience, like, what are the biggest faux pas or mistakes that these seven-figure or multi-seven-figure businesses make when it comes to their marketing strategy at that stage of the game?
Mate, like, first off, knowing what you have done and talking to you, like we've been able to experience a lot of what you've developed as well through your marketing experience. And the two biggest mistakes we see with businesses as they start to grow and they get up to the seven-figure side, or maybe even the three, is number one, a big risk aversion. They're not willing to take a punt on anything anymore. The stakes seem too big. And usually the reason that appears that way is because they often don't have a budget aligned to it. They don't know how much risk they're willing to take. So they don't take any risk at all, which leads to the second thing, is that nothing is a guarantee. Whether you hire an agency, you hire somebody internally in the business, or like even if we step away from marketing, when you hire that new person in the business, you're always taking a risk. No matter how good the resume looks, there's no guarantees. And if you don't test the market, if you don't trial different roles or different people within different positions, or trial an agency or a service provider, there's no way to know what the market is going to respond to or how the business is going to respond to that person. It's the same with your marketing. If you only go out there with one message and you put it out there and it doesn't work, that doesn't mean the entirety of marketing is a faux pas, is a give up. It's not, it just doesn't work. You have to test the market and allow it time for the market to respond and react to the message that you're putting out there. And then that leads to the last of the three, which is be careful if you're going to put all your eggs in one basket. And, I think with all of these, you can basically apply them to every part of your business. But what often happens is we meet the guy who's now been pouring $50,000 a month or $20,000 a month into Facebook ads. All of a sudden, Facebook changes the algorithm and nothing is coming through for the business. We literally had this February of last year. Facebook did a huge change of their algorithm. People went from getting 50 to 100 leads a week to getting 1 or 0. And they had become so conditioned and so reliant on that channel as a way of selling and channel building or lead building, that they no longer had the skill set within the business. Literally, like for 6 years, they had invested only in Facebook and no one in the business knew how to sell anymore. So all of a sudden, like red alarms, alert level 5, nobody knew how to sell in the business anymore. And we're like, well, why would you build your entire business on the back of another business? Facebook is a business just like yours. If it's not benefiting them or it's not benefiting the end client, the end customer, because of the way their algorithm is built or the information that's being provided, it is in their best interest to change it. Now that it affects your business, your one business, to them, they're looking at a grand scheme of impact. They're like, well, if we start to lose traction on our platform, then we start losing our user base, then our user base won't use the platform anyway. So it doesn't matter that we impacted your one business. We've got to think of the business as a whole. And that is the risk that a lot of businesses take. They do just Google, just SEO, just Facebook. And we're like, well, what happens when they make a decision that alters the way or impacts the way that you go to business? What is the grand scheme? What is the plan? What is the external strategy that builds the brand greater than just lead generation, greater than just fast conversion, greater than just low-hanging fruit versus long-term relation? Like, how do we build out a strategy that allows you, no matter where the market is turning, that you're able to adapt? And that's probably the coolest thing. Is like people always come up to us and say, hey, are you worried about this new platform? Are you worried that Facebook is changing this? Are you worried? And the only response I have is not really, no, because I still have all these other channels that we've been developing and they're quite mature as well. So if one of them comes down, the other one goes up. If one of them changes a little bit, we adapt to change with it, So that way we're never kind of reliant on what's happening in market. We develop what we're messaging, what our message in the market, and we build the maturity that people see us for that.
It makes so much sense, mate, and it hurts a lot because I've made all of those mistakes. It's a little bit of a story. Some of the listeners, long-time listeners know we were really aggressive on Facebook ads. We're trying to scale quite dramatically. We spent hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars on paid advertising, and we got zapped. We got completely banned, full ad account bans. To this day, we still can't advertise on Facebook. And all of our lead flow come to a grinding halt. And we were so used to selling in a particular way and growing in a particular way. And it was really stressful because we had to pivot our business complete 180. And it was tough. And we really learned our lesson the hard way.
And it's so easy for it to happen. It's so easy for it to happen. Like, I'll give you a really simple example. One of our clients who's in disability care wrote the word disability in one of their ads. They got flagged by Facebook because the algorithm saw the word disability and assumed that it was going to be some derogatory, right? Banned their accounts, and they had to then establish an entirely new Facebook account, try and migrate over all the followers, which is extremely hard to do these days, and start a whole new ad campaign just because of one simple terminology, which within their industry is completely reasonable to use. So it's as simple as that, and that's it. Your channel is gone,
It's tough, man. And I think the other part to this is that we are reactive because we are risk aversion, right? This is scary for many of us. We didn't get into business to be marketers. So we see it as kind of like going to the casino and putting it all on red. So we can be very tactical in our decision. Yeah. And this was also perpetuated by the industry of agencies, Bernard. And this is why I really like your philosophy, is because a lot of agencies are one-trick ponies. They stay in their area of genius, which is admirable in a way, but it opens them up to be kind of closed-minded and kind of have their blinders on.
Yep.
So talk to us about what, from your philosophy, the way that you guys run your business, what are the components that make an end-to-end marketing strategy for a seven-figure business?
Yeah, well, huge. The list is endless, right? Obviously, the key is, first off, make sure that your messaging is right and your brand represents the quality of business that you want to be producing. There's a reason why certain brands get perceived in the market at a certain price point versus other brands, and that's because they position themselves that way. And up until the time that somebody experiences your brand, perception is everything. So if your perception doesn't marry up with how people are going to enact or interact with your brand, first thing is get the message, get the perception, get the positioning right. Once you've done that, then you need to look at across the channels. How does it communicate across the channels? That includes your website. And often people forget about it. They're like, oh, it's just set and forget. I built it, it's 7 years ago. It's great. It says the information it needs to say, or it doesn't quite say, but it doesn't matter because people are going to contact me anyway. Well, chances are they're probably not. And what people don't realize is 72% of people, even when referred to a business, will look at 2 to 3 other businesses within that industry before making a decision. That means that one customer that's come to visit you has probably looked at 2 or 3 other websites before making a decision on you. Even though somebody said, this is the guy, they're the best ever, they're still going to check and verify. So if your website doesn't represent exactly who you are and what you say you are in the industry, then they're going to take that as verbatim. They're going to look at your website and assume that is you. So they'll make a judgment call off that. After that, it's then a plethora of ever expanding channels that you can be going across. Everything from email to landing pages, funnels, content, SEO, SEM, inbound, outbound, paid advertising, street advertising. There's probably a couple others that I've got, radio, TV, that I've forgotten them. The key thing is not picking everything. The key thing is understanding where are the people in your industry talking that they will most likely be able to refer to you as part of that conversation. So for instance, it could be, okay, a lot of the people we know are having conversations, or they go to industry expos or exhibitions or industry forums. How do we get access to those forums in order to put out a message there that's going to resonate with the people that are speaking there? Is that a PR play? Is that an investing in a particular membership? Is that sponsorship? Is that like hosting an event with them, collaboration? That's where you start to then play the angles. So, and that's where a multi-channel approach to your marketing really becomes effective. And the other thing to understand is that not every channel is about conversion. Some channels are about brand awareness, people knowing that you're there, that you have credibility. So by the time somebody taps them on the shoulder and says, hey, check these guys out, they go, oh my God, I've seen so much about them. I've got to have a chat with these guys. And, often that's, very much our LinkedIn strategy. We post a lot of content there, a lot of information there. And by the time somebody actually talks to us, they go, have I seen your face before? I'm pretty sure I watched a video about you once. And, sometimes they refer to one that they watched 2 years ago and say, hey, I just checked this out. It was really great, really informative. I think you also told us a similar story, right? Where people reach out after years ago seeing a particular piece of content and like, mate, I checked this out. It's, still relevant. I needed to reach out to you. And that's what people forget. It's not a silver bullet, It's not going to be like today you start writing blogs, tomorrow you start making money. It's today you start writing blogs. And as you start writing more and more, you refine your message, you refine your position, you refine your understanding of your market. And a year, 6 months, 3 months, depending on is it the right time for that customer to make that purchase, it's a touch point that they reach out to. And they go, this is the person. They have the credibility and the information, the knowledge and the insight that I need in order to take that next step. And that's the approach you need to take. And where it becomes complicated, I know I'm talking a lot, sorry, but where it becomes complex for a 7-figure business is you need to make a couple of decisions for yourself. Number one, do you have the marketing knowledge to make a decision for your own business to choose the right person for it? And that's whether it's internal or external. If the answer is no, just like, like I've been through, in all honesty, in my business career, I'm on our 8th accountant now. 8th accountant, right? Because I don't know what the hell I'm buying. So every time I buy one, I experience something. And then I don't say, well, the last one was terrible, they were horrible. I say, okay, they didn't have either the knowledge or the qualification for what I'm looking for in my business. And then we move on to the next. Yes. And then we keep developing a more and more mature relationship with more and more insight. Now, I don't blacklist the entire industry like you sometimes feel like they do in marketing. When you experience one marketing agency and you go, well, the whole thing is rubbish, just throw it all out. They don't know anything, right? The whole thing is a bunch of crooks. Yeah, that's it. And, just like lawyers and car dealers, right? You get your good ones and you get your bad ones. And you can't throw out the baby with the bathwater. You just got to keep going until you find a good one, right? So first thing is, are you the guy qualified enough in the business to make that decision? If not, is there somebody else in the business qualified enough to make that decision, to pick that person that's going to supply the business? Now, is that an internal person? Is that an external person? That's the next question you need to answer for the business. Now, what you need to take into account hiring internal is that if you hire one person, there is no way across all those channels I just described, you're going to have an expert in everything. So at some point, that person's going to need to engage an agency. And the question is, do you engage an agency that is a specialist in a single channel, or do you engage an agency that you can hang your hat off their resources whenever you need them? So that's the next choice to make. So do you go directly to the agency and find an agency that services everything from a consultative level through to implementation? Or do you hire an advocate inside the business who can carry the deliverables that you require and be able to bring in an agency at the right point to deliver on them, that has the discernible knowledge to be able to pick the right agency? So those are the direct business choices that you have to make when planning out the selection of your agency. The next choice that comes after that is whether or not they're doing the strategy or you're doing the strategy, and allowing the insights and the knowledge of that agency or that individual inside the business to guide or inform that direction. Now, again, you are testing the market. You are playing with the market. So your business is your baby. Don't make your strategy the baby too, because it's an agile market that is continually evolving. If you get too protective of it, we spent hours putting together this strategy. Why are you telling us to now go in this direction? Guaranteed, by the time you figure out the market has moved, you've missed the boat, and now you're chasing your tail. So be agile. Don't get too protective of the strategy that you've invested in. There was something else I wanted to say. There was another half to your question. What was the other half to the question?
I think the natural segue here, Bernard, and there's so much to this, right? And my observation is through working with our clients who are experts at what they do. They're great technicians. They deliver a phenomenal product or service. They're not marketers. And the hard part is that when they've grown through organics, they've grown through reputation, they've grown through the sweat off their own brow, and they get to a point where they need to employ an agency. And I know from first-hand experience, the vast majority of agency failures have not been because of the agency not knowing. It has been the ambiguity of our brief and the lack of their subject matter expertise in order to execute the strategy in a way that's conducive to produce results. So as a layperson business owner who has achieved a certain level of success, how can you learn how to interview an agency to find the right one? What would be your advice from being the other side of the table?
Great question. And I do remember the other question, which I will answer, which is multi-channel versus niched agency. Here is the complexity with that, is that essentially in order to, it's such a good question. You're right. The quality of the brief affects the end result as much as the quality of the job description when you engage the agency or engage the individual affects the impacts the individual or the agency you end up engaging. How best to discern is very complicated. Anyone can write a good case study. Anyone can write a good testimonial. Anyone can get video testimonials too. You find enough friends who are willing to say yes, that somebody will put something together for you. What you really want to see is discernible metrics. It's the only, it is one of the only ways you can get something I can't say the word cemented, something firm that you can hold your hands on and be able to see whether or not they can actually achieve targets. The next thing you want to see is that they have a strategic approach. They're not recommending what they're recommending because they're a master at it, whether it's the agency or the individual. They're recommending what they have seen out in the market to be evolving the market itself. And that lends to the other point, that if you're picking a niched agency, test their mettle a little bit. Make sure they're not just recommending what's best for them because they know Google Ads. Make sure they're recommending what's industry standard. And the way that you can do that is have enough conversations. Don't have a conversation with one agency. Find an agency who's in a different space and talk to that agency too. Find an individual who has a different background or experience and ask them the same question. I'm being recommended this. What is your thoughts on this? It's not a one size fits all. It never is. And you have to spend time and invest your time in finding and learning the different channels and what the benefits and potential risks are in every channel. I'm sorry, it's not an easy sell. At this point, we're also running a mastermind to train individuals on each individual channel, which actually you're a part of, Jackson, giving guidance to people in our network in order for them to get enough understanding about each individual channel. And through that, they'll learn where that channel may or may not be effective for their business. It's very hard to just give a broad brush and say, this is the right way to go. That's not the right way to go. Just go and check up on the internet and you'll be able to self-educate yourself enough to understand each channel. It's not that easy. It didn't take that for you to become a master of what you do. And it's definitely taken us a long time to develop our mastery of this space. And we're in a very young industry that's not set in stone yet. There's a lot of industries you look at that have been around for hundreds of years now that are set in stone. You have a certain way of working within this industry. And it's a very you might be agile, creating something new within the space, but the space itself doesn't really change. The process between manufacturing glass now from manufacturing glass 100 years ago still essentially uses the same technology. Yes, it's become more efficient, but it's still essentially the same technology. Our industry literally gets an invitation of new technology every 3 to 6 months, if not more often. Now we're dealing with so many questions around AI. How can I leverage AI for my industry? We don't know yet. We don't know how it's going to keep adapting and evolving, how it's going to continue to impact industry. Google's already doing two things. Number one, there is legislation coming out around crediting AI-produced content, and Google is going to start creating algorithms to test whether or not your content's been AI generated. Why? Because if you remember, most of the information your AI is generating has come from a source like Google. So chances are they are able to identify the source anyway. So whether or not you credit it, Google's already going to start looking at ways of ranking the quality of your content based on its origin. And if it can identify that it's been originated through repurposed content, then it will not get the same bang for buck as newly generated content. So you take a risk there again. So we're already seeing the market adapt very quickly to a new technology that has just recently, hit its boom, I would say, So be wary of that. Be wary of silver bullets, I would say, in
and it's chasing shiny objects as well, Bernard. I think the biggest mistake here is that marketing is the perfect combination of art and science. And although things need to be beautiful, I've also seen the ugliest marketing strategies convert incredibly well. And it comes down to understanding the science. And this is what we're going to be working on in your mastermind with your members, and helping them understand the numbers that support their marketing. And there's this constant disconnect between marketing and sales. Like the marketers blame the salespeople that they can't close, and the salespeople blame the marketers that they generate shit leads. And this is about focusing on growth. It's investing in growth. And I think this is the key, that you don't interview an agency or a team member based on their personality and their how they show up and how you can work together is important, but the data should tell you everything that you need to know. And I think that's what you've summarized really well, mate. And I think this is about finding that balance between optimizing and iterating and sticking to what works and backing the winning horses. And finding a good agency that can do that is critically important. So I think that's the big benefit. Summarized it well.
Yeah. And that's the big benefit to a multi-channel approach. You really get to test the market enough that you go, okay, I can see this is the channel that's most effective. This is the channel that's less effective. It doesn't mean wind something down completely, but the way you invest your time, you can start to partition it. So you then get the most impact out of the channel that's being the most effective at any one time. And by playing the market like that, you always hedge your bets that you're going to be in the right place at the right time. And that's what you really want to do. It's the same thing with your business. You want to be in the right room with the right people. So you go to certain networking events, you go to certain events because they're going to give you access to the people. Same thing with marketing. You got to wait for that event to happen. You got to be in the right place at the right time so that when it happens, you're there and you're ready and the business is geared for it. And you're right about ugly. Sometimes simple is best, Keep it simple. People overcomplicate it often, thinking that message is going to hit the target because it says everything it needs to say. Sometimes a little bit of anonymity, a little bit of mystique to it allows people to start to generate their own perspective on things and will themselves or buy themselves into what you're providing. So don't be afraid to provide less with access to more rather than too much that people never really grasp at all.
Great advice, mate. I love that. Fantastic. So look, one of the measures of success that we use, and we teach our clients about this all of the time, is that we try and benchmark about an 8% marketing spend or budget to top line revenue. Obviously, if we can get things converting, we're happy to spend more, but 8%. If you've got $1 million business, you'll probably be spending about $80,000 a year. Obviously, if you've got a $3 million business, we're talking 3x that. And it's typically far more than what many people are spending. So an ideal client for you, Bernard, how would you describe them?
Look, it's a great example. There are kind of two buckets that people fall into. That 8 to 10% are the people who are trying to maintain and create a steady growth through the business. If you're looking for rapid brand awareness or rapid growth, you should be looking more around 12 to 14%. That's because obviously you're trying to make a bigger impact in the market, which means a little bit more energy needs to be poured into it. A perfect fit for us is either one of those two. It's somebody that's kind of hit their groove now and wants to maximize what they're doing there, or they're a fast growth company that's looking to make that impact in market. Typically they're if they're a startup, they're either a startup that has a mature business owner, so this is their second or third business venture, and they're looking to really leverage this into the market. They have a good USP, they know the market well, and they're looking to really push and make an impact. Or they're a business that look at fast growth, so they could be a $5 million plus business, usually sitting around that $10 to $20 million business. And that's when you start to notice that things are a little bit harder to grow. You don't have the network that you had before. You've kind of tapped that out. It might be, just drawing on fumes in your network now. Now it takes your time. It's you that needs to start pushing that message into market, and where marketing becomes a really effective part of that investment. So that means you've probably got around 20 to 80 people in the business. There's probably one person in the business that's driving a sales and marketing type role. Either it's blended or somebody's got a semi role that's marketing focused, or you have a marketing person in there that just doesn't have the resources to push, That's where it becomes super effective. We can come in there, we can resource, we can bring in that agile aspect to the business, a multi-channel approach, and help support that or construct the strategy around the business and the channels that are going to be most effective. And that's when that harmony really gets struck between market access and the resources to do it.
Beautiful, mate. Fantastic. So if somebody's listened or watched this and they're interested in getting in contact with you and the team, what's the best way for them to reach out?
Best way is always email. Definitely, if you try and get anyone on the phone, I don't know if you've seen how hard it can be to get people on the phone today. Email is always a good place to start. Get that conversation started. For us, if you reach out to us, happy for you to reach out directly to Bernard at lucidity.com.au. That's UCIDITY.com.au. If you've ever spelt the word lucidity, just drop the L. That's the name. And I'll reach out to you, and I'm pretty quick on the button there, so I'll usually get back to you within 24 hours, and always happy to just pop in a 15-minute meeting. We can get to know each other, get to know what you need, and whether or not we're a right fit, we'll always point you in the right direction of somebody who can support what your business needs in order to get to that next platform.
Beautiful. We'll include all the links in the show notes so people can get access to that. So, Bernard, we've covered so much territory here, mate, but if you had to summarize the show in one last golden nugget for our listeners and watchers, what would that last golden nugget be?
Oh, mate, put me on the spot. Look, the golden nugget, I would say, is that careful where you invest your marketing spend, but don't be risk adverse. So I know it's black and white if you hear it just like that, but if you have a limited marketing budget, you want to work with somebody who's going to give you the access to the most places that you can put your message out. And if that's an individual in the business or that's an agency you can work with, make the decision on what's going to give you the agility to be able to adjust to the market as you need to adjust. And then on the other side, be aware of the risk. So in that, I mean, talk to somebody like the guys at Aureus, like Jackson, who's been around the block a little bit, who knows what it takes to invest into the space, so that when you make that investment, you are aware of the impact it's going to have on your business, whether or not it has a return. If you're too scared to take the risk, then I can guarantee it will never have the return, right? If you're not going to make the investment, it's not going to give you the return. But if you're aware of the impact of making the investment, that it will not chew up your bottom line if you do it and it doesn't return, then you're able to make that investment freely without feeling like you're taking a gamble. And that's where you're going to get the most bang for buck. And I know that was a long one-off wrap-up, but that's the best I could tell you, man.
I love that, mate. That's great advice. And I think that's important, right? If you treat it as gambling, you're going to be really nervous around it. If you treat it as investing, and we can be systematic and process-driven in it, then it becomes a presupposed thing, and we just keep optimizing until we get the results. So, mate, it's been a jam-packed episode. It's been an absolute pleasure. I love collaborating with you guys. I'm looking forward to seeing what we can do together in the future. Guys, if you've enjoyed this episode, make sure you get in touch with Bernard and the team. Drop us a like, drop us a share if there's anybody else in your network that you think would get value from this episode. And just remember, guys, a good idea in theory remains exactly that, just a good idea and to put it into practice. So start implementing. Bernard, good to see you, mate, and we'll catch up again soon.
Mate, what a good quote to wrap it up. I love that. Thank you very much, man. I really appreciate being on the show, and it's been so enjoyable. Thank you.
My pleasure, mate.